Let's go straight to the top story at this hour. An unprecedented number of Hong Kongers are on the streets, not for protesting, but for voting. A local election which could turn as a pivotal moment for Hong Kong is expected to bring some change to the table amid heightened security. Polling stations opened at 7:30 a.m. local time, thrusting Hong Kong's local government onto the international stage. This time, amid intensifying political tensions, it is the first time that all 452 seats in the 18 district councils will be contested for. In fact, registered voters aged between 18 and 35 years old have increased by more than 12%, a record high. 4.1 million people are expected to vote in this election. It's almost around 60% of the population. And Patrick Falk is joining us live from Hong Kong for more on this. A very good morning to you, Patrick, here from India. Now, of course, it's a big day there in Hong Kong, and these are the first elections in Hong Kong, district elections, since the mass protest in June. Tell us, why are these elections so significant?
Well, there is a lot of excitement about the elections today. The polls opened at 7:30 this morning. There are reports of huge turnouts across the city, big lines. Here at Kowloon Park, I would say that it is a steady stream of people coming to have themselves heard. This entrance to Kowloon Park is acting as the voting poll for the Tsim Sha Tsui West and the Jordan South constituencies. And we're only a few hundred meters away from the PolyU campus, where the standoff continues between protesters holed up inside and police. Essentially, people have come out today to let themselves be heard and to say whether or not they've had enough of the unrest that's been going on in Hong Kong over the past several months, or do they want the government to review how they're handling the situation. So in many ways, this is symbolic. And we're just seeing police officers come out just now. I should say that security has been stepped up for today. There are officers manning every single one of the polling stations today, and they are in full riot gear. We are told that they are in maximum reserve mode. That means that they will maintain a minimal presence, but they are on hand and ready to contain any unrest if there is any. But as I say, it is very calm and peaceful right now here.
Right. Patrick, also, many all over the world are seeing the polls as a referendum on support for the anti-government protest. How could that turn out as the voting begins and, of course, we get the results later on?
Yeah, well, they certainly are seen as a referendum on the Lam administration and on the protest movement. So, a big win for the Pan Democrats, or a good showing for the Pan Democrats, would send a clear message to Beijing that there is still broad support for this protest movement. The pro-establishment are concerned about how this is going to turn out, particularly after the unrest, which, remember, is caused by the extradition bill, which has now been thrown out. How this turns out isn't entirely clear. This morning at 7:30, there were a lot of senior citizens here. I saw some of them giving the thumbs up to the police officers. As the day has progressed, there have been more and more young voters turning out, some of them dressed in black, some of them wearing face masks. So that gives you an idea of who's voting for who and the generational divide that exists. Critically, although the district councillors don't hold a whole load of responsibility or important responsibilities besides dealing with local affairs like transport and maintaining public facilities, the group that wins the most number of votes in these district council elections will be given 117 votes on the 1,200 electoral commission, which chooses the chief executive. So if the Pan Democrats do win or do take the most number of seats, that could give them a little bit more of say in terms of representing the whole of Hong Kong when it comes to choosing Hong Kong's leader.
Right. Like you said that, you clearly mentioned there that, of course, these elections are very important when it comes to, you can say, the pro-democracy camp there in Hong Kong. Now, we also know that nearly 400,000 new voters have registered this time around. This is hugely significant, isn't it? It shows that Hong Kong does want change, and it wants to make sure that through elections they can control their future.
Yeah, well, I mean, this doesn't necessarily mean that they get to control their future, but at least it sends the message that some sort of change, if indeed that's how the vote turns out, some sort of change is demanded by people in Hong Kong. Whether or not the government acts on that is difficult to see, but Carrie Lam also went to go and vote this morning herself and noted that it's been relatively peaceful over the last few days, and that she'd been reading online reports of people saying that they were really quite happy that the city has returned to relative calm. But of course, as I say, there is still this standoff taking place at Poly University, not far from here. There are no signs of unrest right now, but there are a lot of things that could trigger people off, and this is best described perhaps as an easy calm that's taking place here right now.
Right, Patrick Falk, thank you for getting us all those details. We'll be coming back to you as and when this story develops further. Now, let's break down the past 6 months of Hong Kong for you. It's been 6 months, remember, since those Hong Kong protests, which are still continuing and making headlines all over the world. Since early June, the semi-autonomous Chinese city has been rocked by, in fact, these protests, which were triggered by the extradition bill, a bill that would have allowed people to be extradited to mainland China to stand a trial. After 4 months onto the violent protests, Chief Executive Carrie Lam formally withdrew the bill, but this was too late. Clashes between protesters and police have turned extremely violent. The protesters took over various sites like the Legislative Council building and other areas as well, including the subway, Hong Kong's international airport, shopping malls and also universities. The latest university that came under the siege was the Polytechnic University, like our reporter was just telling us there. It's being said that over 50 protesters are still trapped inside the university. What are the protesters demanding? Hong Kongers started their protest with 5 demands. First, the extradition bill should be formally withdrawn. This was met in the month of September. Second, an independent inquiry to be set up against the alleged police brutality on the people. Third, an official pardon for the thousands of people who have been charged with offences amid protest. Fourth, a retraction of the police claims that protesters are guilty of rioting. Fifth, a political right to elect the full legislature and chief executive of Hong Kong. Anti-government protests and clashes with police have become a ground reality of Hong Kong, with escalating anger and violence from both the sides. The future of Hong Kong seems bleak right now as China continues to refuse backing down. It's being said that this violent wave of protests have been seen as China's biggest political crisis in the modern times.